In today's lecture, we are going to discuss gene mapping and genetic markers. These have been mentioned separately under the units of biotechnology and plant tissue culture. So, we'll be discussing them together. These are related topics. So, first of all, we are going to define what is a genome map. Genome, you understand? Genome means a complete sequence of all the genes present in an organism. That total set of genes is called genome of an organism. Now, if we want to prepare a map of that genome, then basically we are going to study the sequence of different genes on respective chromosomes. So, and this map, this is a very useful source for different sequencing experiments or which are required for gene therapy, for vector ligation, for different kind of the researches where the DNA segments are to be copied or to be cloned or their products are required. So all kind of the biotechnological applications, they are actually dependent upon genome maps. So genome map provides a guide for sequencing experiments by showing the positions of genes and other distinctive features. Means if I have a genome map of E. coli, means I will be having complete information about its genes, their location, and their sequence, the distances between different genes and all. Then comes gene mapping. Gene mapping describes the methods used to identify the locus of the gene and the distances between the genes. Now, this is a smaller parameter as compared to the genome map, because here now I am concerned about the mapping of a gene. For example, I want to study some gene A in a genome, then where that is located, what is the locus of that gene, what is the distance of that gene from other genes. So that will all be studied under gene mapping. So this is not about whole of the genome. So you can say that this is a smaller parameter as compared to the genome map. Now, type of genome maps. Broadly, we categorize these maps into the genetic or linkage maps and physical maps. The genetic maps, as the name suggests, means we are going to use here the genetic markers. Genetic markers are the DNA sequences within the genome which are identified, which can be used as the marker sequences, and their recombination data of such markers is used to prepare genetic map. So this is basically dependent upon recombination. You all have studied these terms, recombination and linkage, in your lower classes. These are inversely related. More is the recombination, lesser is the linkage within two genes, and vice versa. So we are going to firstly identify few sequences in the genome who will serve as genetic marker, and then we will study their recombinations, frequencies, and will prepare accordingly the linkage maps. Second comes the physical map. Physical maps is more relevant, is more real. Why? Because it is giving you an exact idea about the distance between the genes and how they are related. It is not only dependent upon the linkage or recombination, because sometimes it may happen that there is a large heterochromatin fragment between the genes, because of which their recombination is less. But the recombination is less. Through this map we will propose that it has got more linkage, so they will be closely placed, but actually those genes are distantly placed and they are showing less recombination because there is a lot of heterochromatic material inside. So that's why the genetic map may not give you the exact picture how the genes they are placed in the particular genome sequence, whereas a physical map, that will give you the exact picture. So these are also called the chromosome maps, and they are generated by aligning the restriction maps of specific pieces of cloned genomic DNA along the chromosomes. Means For example, for rDNA making, I have separated certain DNA fragments from the sample, and those sample, let's suppose I sequence this fragment, next fragment, so on, and by overlapping their sequences, I can have the information, the complete stretch of the genes or sequences in this part. So this is how the physical map is generated. So I am going to align the restriction fragments, the sequences that is obtained from the DNA pieces that we use for the ligation purpose to the vector for preparing rDNAs and all. So that can be used in order to prepare a physical map. So this will give you, this is more real, this will give you the exact picture. Now, whenever we talk about map, for example, I am giving this map. So this map must have some unit, scale. The scale in this case is called map unit, and one map unit is equals to 1 centimorgan. What is 1 centimorgan? This is a distance which allows 1% recombination between two markers. So it is basically related to this type of the map. That is the genetic or linkage map. Means if there is 1% recombination frequency of the two genes, then the gap between them is considered as 1 centimorgan, which is called 1 map unit. If it is 5%, let's suppose we say, so it will be 5 centimorgan and 5 map units. So always the number is related to the percent recombination frequency of those two genes or those two markers, whatever sequence we are selecting markers. This is an example to show. You can see here, this is a genetic map prepared for Drosophila, and various characters, their alleles have been identified as markers. For example, for vermilion eye, for yellow body color, white eye, miniature wings, or rudimentary wings. So here we observe that, let's suppose for vermilion, the gene located is, the marker identified as Y, whereas for the yellow body is W. And when we study their recombination frequencies, they are very less, because of which we find out that their recombination frequency, this comes out to be just 0.1%. So if it is 0.1%, that will be equal to 0.1 centimorgan. So the gap between these will be given as 0.1 map unit. Okay. Similarly, if between these two, the value is coming out to be 0.3, so the gap is of 0.3 map unit, means their recombination frequency comes out to be 0.3%, and so on. So this is how various maps they are prepared, and through them we get the sequence and how the genes they are, how distantly placed or how closely placed they are. So we can have an idea about that. Now, how to calculate percent recombination? What I am saying that 1% is equals to 1 centimorgan is equals to 1 map unit. So how we find out that? For that, we have these two areas which are the frequency recombinations we calculate. So for example, this is chromosome number 1. This is chromosome number 2. It has the marker identified capital A, capital B, and it has small a, small b. Now, different meiosis were carried out, and amongst all those meiosis, total 50 meiosis, we are taking the data of 50 meiosis. Out of those 50 meiosis, 49 meiosis, they show the offsprings without any recombinant. Means they had all parental characters, all parental, same markers were there. But there was one meiosis where there was a single crossing over. You can see here single crossing over, because of which we obtained two recombinants with capital A small b combination and small a capital B combination, and there were 1 each non-recombinants. So when we calculate, if we have to find out the percent recombination frequency, how will we do that? It is designated as small r. How we calculate it? You will have the number of the recombinants 1 plus 1, that is 1 plus 1, divided by total. Okay, so total crossovers are 49 plus 49 plus 49 plus 49 parental types, and here when there was crossing over, 1 and 1 plus these as well. So you have to conclude the total. So that becomes 200. For 50 we will have multiplied by 4, total 200 combinations. So 2 upon 200 will give you the value 1%. So 1% means 1 map unit, means 1 centimorgan. So from if there is one crossover, there is one point at which the crossing over is taking place between the gene A and B, and their recombination frequency comes out to be 1%, it means the distance of them on map unit, on the map, genetic map, that will be 1 centimorgan. It is equals to 1 map unit. So this is how it is calculated. Had it been some other variation in the crossover, for example, you were getting 2 here, 2 here, then this data will be as 4 upon 200, right? Then accordingly this will vary, this will become 2%. So it means those genes, they have more recombination possible, so they will be slightly distantly placed. So obviously the distance will now be 2 map units, so they will be distantly placed. Okay, so this is how it is calculated on the basis of this formula, that you will have number of recombinants divided by the total combinations including non-recombinants, and you can find out the value. If the value comes out to be less than 50% for recombinations, then we say that genes are linked. They are present on same chromosome. Like in this case, this is just 1%. Whereas if the value comes out to be more than 50%, then we say that genes, they are either far apart on the chromosomes, means they are distantly placed. For example, we have this is the chromosome, one gene is placed here, other is placed here, so they are distantly placed. That's why they are showing more than 50% recombination, because chances are during meiosis, gamete formation and further crossing over, chances are that they go to different gametes, right? Their probability is more than 50%. So then we say that they are distantly placed genes. So accordingly, the distance between them is calculated through this percent frequency, percent recombination frequency data. Now, why we say that physical maps are better as compared to the genetic maps? For example, you say we identified in the genetic markers map these markers NET, PR, CN, and SP. Now you look at their frequencies. This is giving you the 54.5 and 57.5. Okay, the distance between them, the real distance when we find out in the physical map, the distance between them is wide enough in PR and in CN. See, this is the distance. Okay, but the recombination, when we calculate, we find the positions that they are really closely placed. Their linkage is strong. Their recombination frequency comes out to be lesser. But why is that less? That is because of this stretch of heterochromatin present in between. Because of that, here the recombination is very slow. But when we find out the genetic map, depending upon the frequencies, we say they are linked genes. Why? Because recombination is lesser, so linkage is stronger, so they are closely placed. But in reality, they are not closely placed. They are actually showing lesser recombination because of this heterochromatic patch. And we know that genome is full of heterochromatin. So the genetic map will not give you the exact information about how distantly they are placed, because it is totally dependent on the fact that it is relying upon the recombination frequencies. But that data may be wrong also because of the presence of heterochromatin. So physical maps, they give you more real picture, they are more accurate representations of the genome as compared to the genetic maps. But genetic maps, they often give you insights into the nature of different regions of chromosomes, because this is not always the case. So it can give you otherwise the nature that okay, the genes, they may are placed together, they may be working together, or they are separately distantly placed. So it cannot be wholly solely relied. So most of the times the physical map information and the genetic map, they are overlapped. Okay, and then they are used for sequencing procedures and all. So now coming to the molecular marker, for preparing any kind of the genetic map, you first need to have molecular markers. So that is the main essence of all genome mapping. That is, you should have a collection of molecular markers in the genome. You should know about the positions of those in the genome. Now, what is a molecular marker? A molecular marker is a molecule, it is a wide term, any molecule contained within a sample taken from an organism or matter. Any matter, it may be non-living thing, it may be living organism. When you take out a sample from that, in that sample, whatever is the molecule of study, the molecule of interest, that will serve as molecular marker. For example, in most of the sources, whenever we have to go for criminal studies, parentage, in most of them, we are having the living organisms, and from there the DNA is selected and that DNA is compared, right? So this DNA that carries the information, that also gives you the information about the genetic disorders, about the evolutionary history, the how correlated those different sources of DNA are. So DNA is basically giving you the information. This is a molecule that you are using for explaining genetic order disorders, evolution, parentage, paternity, etc. all. So it means DNA is serving as a molecular marker for that individual. But genetic marker, this is a relatively more deeper term. This is at a smaller scale. Here we are not talking about a complete molecule, but here we are talking about a fragment of DNA. Okay, not whole DNA which can serve as a molecular marker. We are just dependent upon, because all these, they are studies related to cytogenetics. So in cytogenetics, when we have to talk about the molecular marker, it is DNA, and the genetic marker, that will be a fragment of DNA. So now we are talking about a small proportion of that DNA that is associated with a particular location within the genome. Now, since last few decades, many markers, they have been identified. This process started around the end of the 20th century, that is around 1970s, 80s, when people, they started developing, they started identifying the genetic markers. The very first marker which was identified was restriction fragment length polymorphism, RFLP. Next is random amplified polymorphic DNA, that is RAPD. It is generally called as RAPID. Another important one is amplified fragment length polymorphism, that is AFLP. Still we use very common for the plants, their betterment for having the hybridization experiments for raising improved varieties, that is single nucleotide polymorphism, SNP. Okay, now in most of the cases, the name suggests itself what will be the technique, on what criteria it is based upon. So in detail, we are going to discuss these first two categories, RFLP and RAPID. So first genetic marker that we'll discuss in detail is RFLP. It stands for restriction fragment length. Means we are talking about the length of restriction fragments and their variation, means polymorphism. For example, if there is a restriction fragment of this length, there is another fragment of this length, then this length. So what is the variation in them? That we study. That makes the criteria of this analysis. This was the first genetic marker to be developed. It is non-PCR based. So here we are not going to amplify those fragments. It was developed by Botstein in 1980. It is a co-dominant marker. Whenever you have to prepare genetic maps on the basis of RFLP, then you come to understand what is co-dominant here means. Okay, so that is a something content related to your masters. You can study it later on, but for now you can just keep in mind that this is a co-dominant marker. So basically, what is RFLP? It is a genetic marker resulting from the variation or change in the length of defined DNA fragments, means restriction fragments, produced by digestion of the DNA sample with restriction endonucleases. Means, let's suppose this is the DNA I am having and I am using particular restriction enzyme with this sample. It will cut at the particular sequence which is characteristic of that restriction enzyme, so that many fragments are generated. Then these fragments, these are whatever changes are in the length of these restriction fragments, that is identified on the basis bands they are prepared, and then we can have its applications in different fields of genetic engineering. What are these steps for this technique? First is isolate high quality DNA. This is must. You need high quality DNA. There should not be any other impurity of proteins, etc. Then digest that DNA sample with the restriction enzyme of your interest. Let's suppose you want to use only one restriction enzyme. You can have many restriction enzyme at a time used to digest DNA. Then you will fractionate those digested samples by electrophoresis. So under electrophoresis, you will have a gel. In that, you will have wells. You must have studied this technique. In those wells, you will load your DNA samples and apply. It will be kept in a buffer. You will apply electropotential gradient across it so that ultimately the segments, they start moving according to their lengths. Okay, so you will have this kind of the bands developed. Now, once the bands are separated, the fragments are separated on the basis of their weights or lengths, then you say the next work is that you will transfer these fragments on nitrocellulose membrane. Now, here this part comes under the Southern blotting. If you are talking about DNA, then this comes under the technique Southern blotting. Now, once it is transferred, then those fragments, still they are not visible to you. They are not visible to naked eye. Then you will hybridize those fragments with the radioactive probe. It is a special DNA sequence which has radioactive element in it that will bind to, in all these bands, it will bind to a particular sequence that you have already identified. The probe is a defined probe. You know the sequence of that. Okay, and then in order to observe the bands, because you have used radioactive elements which have tagged particular sequence in the genome, then you will use the autoradiography, which is going to use X-rays, and you will be finally able to see, because of that radioactivity, you will be able to see the bands. So this is how the technique works. Now this is a small video in order to tell you about how this process takes place. So here you can see we have shown the DNA from two different individuals, and they have a restriction site that is called the TTAA. Okay, so you added a restriction enzyme, but because of a mutation at this locus, the that fragment will not be cut. This fragment, there is a mutation, so it is not as per the same sequence, so it will not be cut. So accordingly, variable restriction fragments of these two samples will be generated. Then you are going to run it over the gel, that is electrophoresis. So for sample 1 and 2, you will obtain bands. This is just a representation, not the exact banding pattern. Then you will transfer it on the nitrocellulose membrane, and you will be using radio labeled probes. So those probes are having radioactive elements. They will be finally attaching themselves to the particular sequence which is complementary to them. This is all under Southern blot. And then there will be autoradiography, in which under X-ray you can observe the location of bands where the probes have actually attached, and then these bending patterns can be compared. Okay, so this is how this complete technique RFLP, how we generate these genetic markers, this is how it takes place. Now this is a real data that 13 cultivars of a same plant species, they have been compared. You can see this is the final when you observe the X-ray of those bands, and easily you can correlate. See here the band is missing. Okay, in all these the band is missing. Then similarly here the band is displaced, right? In these also the band is displaced. It means there must be some variation because the mutation during the course of evolution, or probably you may have your mutants raised through the mutation mutagenesis. You have prepared your own samples which are having the mutations, and there the bands, they are displaced. So this is how you can compare whether whatever samples you are having, for example cultivar A, B, we can clearly see they are related. But when I talk about cultivar A with C, there is a variation. So I can identify which are related and which are different. So that is the use of these techniques. You can compare different genomes, you can relate them according to their phylogeny. Okay, and it can be used for other, apart from the plants, it can be used for the criminal disputes, for the parenting disputes. We can use this technique there also as a marker. The limitations of this technique are it is a slow process. Okay, sometimes it takes around years, 1 or 2 years to generate data. Then it needs high quality DNA. If you have less DNA sample, that will be problematic. It is an expensive technique because you are using radio labeled isotopes. It's species specific. Okay, you cannot apply it to any data, any random DNA sample. You should have information about that. Then the use of radioisotopes is highly restricted. All laboratories, they cannot go for RFLP. There are only certified laboratory where this analysis can be done. Now the second genetic marker is RAPD, which is called rapid. This is random amplified polymorphic DNA. It's PCR based, so here the DNA sequences will be amplified, their multiple copies will be produced, so we say it is PCR based. Polymerase chain reaction, you must have studied this technique. Here a small amount of DNA can be amplified many times using this technique. Then it uses dominant, it is a dominant marker. Again, when you go for preparing the genetic maps using RAPD, then you come to know why we are calling it dominant marker, but for now you can just remember this thing. It was developed by Williams et al. In 1990, so almost 10 years after RFLP, RAPD was designed. Then this is a definition of RAPD. These are genetic markers resulting from PCR amplification of genomic DNA sequences recognized by 10-mer random primers. 10-mer means which have 10 base sequence. Okay, those primers which have minimum 10 base pair sequence, they are used, and they are going to recognize arbitrary nucleotide sequences. So basically this is a genetic marker which is having crude DNA. Let's suppose you are having crude DNA. You have no idea about its sequence. You don't know nothing about the DNA or the gene sequence of this DNA. And in that medium, you are going to add 10 base pair long primers. They are defined primers. You know their sequence. Now, wherever in the genome they find their complementary sequence, they will bind there. Okay, and then the PCR is run, means these copies of particular this area, this one where the primer is going to bind, those products they will be amplified. Okay, those sequences they will be amplified, and then same via gel electrophoresis we are going to separate them. Okay, and same technique will be followed and the bands will be generated. So this is how this technique works. Now, this doesn't require any specific knowledge of the DNA sequence of the target organism. I'm saying this is crude DNA. So, no prior knowledge of the sequence is required. So, that's why it becomes very suitable for investigation of species that are not well known. Species for which we have not done sequencing procedures earlier, for which the gene sequence or the DNA sequence is not known. For them also we can carry out RAPD. So this is just to give you an idea. For example, you have total 7 chromosomes. See, it's numbered from 1 to 7. In these chromosomes, we don't have any idea about their gene sequence. To them, I add a primer. This arrow represents a primer. Now, wherever is the complementary sequence of the primer in those chromosomes, it will bind there. And the segment which is in between that segment is finally going to be multiplied, means amplified. So multiple copies of that particular sequence will be raised. So we have A, B, C. In chromosome 3, it could not find any sequence, so no multiplication. In chromosome 4, it could find. In 5, there was no. In 6, there was no. In 7, it was. So in whatever area they are going to find their complementary sequence and the primer they get attached, they will amplify those regions of DNA. Then we will run the electrophoresis of these PCR products, and this way you will get bands. Okay, now you can see relate here, these are in relation to the size. For example, A band, that was the shortest length, so it has reached the farthest end. whereas the B, that was the largest in size. You can see its length of this fragment. They are largest in the size, so it has just stick to the first in the beginning part only. It just stayed there. So larger is the fragment length, the lesser it will move, and smaller is the fragment, farthest it will move. So smaller, they move farthest. This is a real picture. You can see this is a rapid profile, means RAPD profile. So from here, let's suppose we had these 17 different samples, and in these samples we obtain the bands like this, and we can see here. Now we can relate. The number 3 numbers have been given depending upon the similarity in the profile, like this is related to this. You can see their bending pattern, they are same, to the next one also, to the next also. Similarly, if we look upon third type, see there are 4 bands. Here also there are 4 bands, so they are related. So this is how we can correlate the data and we can get the information about the species. Now, what are the advantages of this technique? This is very simple method and it is cost effective. We can run it with crude DNA. Okay, this is a marker which can be easily done with any kind of the DNA sample. It can be performed in a moderate laboratory because we are not using radioactive isotopes here. Then no prior knowledge of genome under research is necessary. If I am having some species obtained, I have no information about what that species is, still I can extract DNA from that. I can run RAPD, identify the molecular marker in that by adding a known primer. It will bind to a particular sequences in the genome. It will amplify that. We will have those PCR products and we will run the gel electrophoresis, then Southern blot and all, and finally through that I can say I can find out the information to which species it is related. So this is how this technique is used. So what are the overall uses of the genetic maps, where we use them? They can be used to identify genes responsible for particular diseases which are related to heredity, any kind of the heritable diseases. For cancer also, because for cancers also, the genes which are not expressing earlier, which are called proto-oncogenes, they can be identified, and it can be predicted that in how many years or by what time a person may develop cancer. Okay, so it's a kind of the pre-information that can be obtained from these studies. Then it can help identify genes responsible for various traits. For example, in plants we study there is some kind of resistance. In animals there is resistance. So those traits, they can be recognized by using these markers. Then it is very, very beneficial for the breeding programs, especially in plant species. There the SNP markers are very commonly used these days. These can be used for phylogenetic studies because we can relate different species, so we can have information about their evolution. And these also find application in criminal studies, in parentage dispute, etc. So in the paternity dispute, you must have studied DNA fingerprinting. There also these bending patterns are compared in criminal studies also. So these markers, they are very, very helpful in such applications. So that's all about the mapping and the markers. So you can prepare this topic for 7-mark question directly. Whether you get a question simply on the genome map, explain that, you will give this complete content. And if you get this question on the molecular markers, then you can directly start from the giving the definition of what a molecular marker is, then you will come directly to the genetic markers, and you will explain both these types, just giving a small reference of the other types with their full forms. Thank you.